Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a homeowner here in Regina, Saskatchewan, and you've recently stumbled upon loose-fill vermiculite insulation up in your attic, you are probably feeling pretty overwhelmed right now. It's totally understandable. You're thinking, what does this mean for my house? What about my family's health? Well, take a deep breath because you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the completely uncompromising, highly structured safety process that we use here at Prairie Asbestos. We're going to walk you through the absolute anatomy of our safety protocols. It's all based strictly on our Site-Specific Asbestos Control Plan, so you'll know exactly what's happening from the second we pull up to the moment your home is officially certified clean. Honestly, it's completely natural to feel stressed out about asbestos. Just hearing the word carries a ton of weight, right? But here's the thing, ignoring the problem isn't the answer. The real solution is an incredibly rigorous, highly specialized, and totally transparent plan of action. See, we classify the disturbance of loose-fill attic vermiculite as a high-risk asbestos process. That means we don't just roll up with a couple of heavy-duty garbage bags and a shop vac. No way. We deploy a heavily regulated, scientifically backed system that's designed to isolate, extract, and completely eliminate the hazard. We make absolutely sure that not a single microscopic fiber makes its way down into your living room. Okay, let's dive right into this roadmap. We execute this high-risk abatement across 5 crucial steps: planning for high-risk safety, building the containment zone, the 3-stage decontamination, safe extraction and disposal, and finally, final clearance and certification. Section 1, planning for high-risk safety, which is really about the invisible preparation. Because safety doesn't just magically start when we flip the vacuums on. It actually begins long before we ever step foot on your property. Now, you might be wondering, what's with the number 14? Well, 14 is the mandatory number of days required for Saskatchewan Occupational Health and Safety notification. We literally cannot start any workspace setup, hoarding construction, or structural disturbance without it. We actually have to submit a notification of high-risk asbestos process to the Ministry of Labor Relations and Workplace Safety at least 2 full weeks in advance. This ensures that every single high-risk job we tackle is right there on the government's radar. It establishes a baseline of absolute regulatory accountability right out of the gate. And you know, that accountability carries right over to the entrance of your work zone. We maintain a super active on-site documentation register right at the clean access point of your home. This binder is immediately available for any OH&S officer to inspect at any time. It's got everything: valid certificates proving our workers are fully trained, up-to-date respirator fit testing logs from within the last 24 months so we know our team has a perfect seal, and manufacturer certifications proving our HEPA units operate at a minimum of 99.97% efficiency. Oh, and daily manometer pressure readings too. Keeping this register active is just immediate, rock-solid proof of our team's expertise and the flawless integrity of our equipment. Moving on to Section 2, building the containment zone, or as we like to call it, building the fortress. So once all the paperwork is verified, we get to the physical construction. Right off the bat, you're going to see those bright warning signs prominently posted at all approaches and entryways. They clearly establish the restricted work zone and mandate that respirators and protective clothing are strictly required past that point. It's a bit of a stark reminder, sure, but a totally necessary one. We are taking the boundaries of this hazard extremely seriously. Once we're inside that restricted zone, we start creating what are called critical seals. We don't just, close the door and hope for the best. We literally lock out all mechanical ventilation networks, supply and return air ducts, windows, doors, everything within the workspace. Then we seal it all airtight using heavy-duty 6mm polyethylene sheeting and industrial duct tape. The floor gets a highly specialized treatment too. We put down a minimum of 2 independent overlapping layers of that 6mm plastic. The joints overlap by at least 30 centimeters, they're double taped, and the plastic actually runs right up the walls. This creates a literal tub, guaranteeing that contaminated air or water never, ever migrates into your adjacent living spaces. But here is the crucial part. A plastic tent just isn't enough unless you're actually controlling the air itself. And that is where the number 5 comes in. 5 pascals. We establish a negative pressure containment enclosure using portable HEPA-filtered exhaust units. These machines have to maintain a continuous negative pressure of at least 5 pascals, which is 0.02 inches of water gauge relative to the clean areas of your home. It essentially acts like an invisible vacuum seal. Think about it like this. If a tiny pinhole were to somehow open up in our plastic fortress, the air would rush into the containment zone rather than having asbestos fibers floating out into your hallway. On top of that, this negative air setup provides a minimum of 4 complete air changes per hour inside the containment. 4 times an hour, the air is completely swapped out. These units run continuously, 24/7, from the initial setup all the way until final clearance is officially achieved. They scrub the air and then discharge that perfectly HEPA-filtered clean exhaust directly to the outside of your building, safely positioned well away from any occupied areas, windows, or HVAC intakes.
All right, Section 3, the 3-stage decontamination. The human shield phase.
So we've protected your home, right, but how do we protect our actual workers and make absolutely sure they don't track anything out into your living room? First, let's talk gear. Our team wears full-body disposable coveralls with attached hoods, elastic cuffs taped airtight over heavy-duty gloves, and laceless rubber boots. But their respiratory protection is the absolute most vital piece of the puzzle. During the lower-risk setup and teardown phases, workers use tight-fitting, half-mask air-purifying respirators equipped with P100 filters. However, during the active phase, when we are actually disturbing, shoveling, or vacuuming that vermiculite, every single worker upgrades. They must wear a NIOSH-approved full-facepiece powered air-purifying respirator, or PAPR for short, equipped with high-efficiency P100 HEPA cartridges. It's literally the highest standard of protection available. Now, what's really interesting about this process is the brilliant logic of how a worker safely exits the containment. We attach a 3-stage personnel decontamination unit to the enclosure, and it's all separated by self-closing curtained airlocks. It's a super strict one-way progression. First, they enter the dirty room. Here, they HEPA vacuum their coveralls and deposit their contaminated gear. Next up is the shower room, which is fully equipped with tempered water. They have to thoroughly wash their bodies and rinse the exterior of their respirator before they even think about taking that facepiece off. Finally, they step into the clean room, where they can remove the respirator and put on their clean street clothes. Oh, and get this, even the wastewater from that shower is passed through a certified 10 micrometer sediment filtration system before it's ever allowed to safely enter the municipal sewer. Talk about thorough, right? Section 4, Safe Extraction and Disposal. The careful extraction. This is where the heavy lifting actually happens. But remember, this is a meticulous surgical operation, not some chaotic demolition job. A key technique we use to stop fibers from ever going airborne in the first place is the application of amended water. So what is that? It's water treated with a non-ionic surfactant, basically a specialized soap, to reduce its surface tension. We use low-pressure sprayers to lightly mist the vermiculite both before and during the disturbance. High-pressure sprays are strictly prohibited here. The wetting process has to be perfectly balanced. It effectively suppresses the dust, but we ensure the material doesn't become totally saturated. If it did, it could create a dangerous structural weight hazard on your attic ceiling joists, or even compromise your electrical systems. We definitely don't want that. Once the material is safely vacuumed or carefully shoveled up, it enters our incredibly strict waste handling protocol. We place the waste into these pre-printed, hazard-labeled 6 mil thick polyethylene bags. The top of the bag is twisted into what we in the industry call a Goose-Neck, and it's sealed completely airtight with duct tape. Then, in a designated transfer area, the outside of that bag is damp wiped or HEPA vacuumed entirely clean. Finally, it gets double bagged into a second, clean 6 mil plastic bag and taped securely all over again before being moved to a locked and closed asbestos disposal bin. We do all of this to assure you that absolutely nothing escapes on the journey out of your house. Period. And finally, Section 5, Final Clearance and Certification, the final proof. We don't just declare the job done, pack up our trucks, and walk away. We require ultimate, scientifically backed reassurance. So after the complete extraction and meticulous HEPA vacuuming and damp wiping of all your rafters and floor joists, our site supervisor conducts a really thorough visual inspection. Following that, we apply what's called a lockdown sealant. This is a slow-drying glue spray that gets misted uniformly across all the attic surfaces and those plastic containment walls we built. Then, the containment must remain completely undisturbed for a mandatory drying period of at least 4 hours. This step is absolutely crucial. It physically bonds any remaining microscopic, totally invisible residual fibers flat against the surfaces so they can literally never become airborne again. And this brilliantly illustrates our commitment to safety because we never grade our own homework. Once that lockdown sealant dries, we undergo independent air clearance testing. Those negative air units, they keep right on running. Meanwhile, a qualified third-party analyst, someone completely independent from Prairie Asbestos, comes in to conduct phase contrast microscopy testing. The airborne fiber levels have to register at less than 0.01 fibers per cubic centimeter. If even a single sample fails, the entire area is re-cleaned, resealed with glue, and retested. We absolutely do not dismantle our containment enclosure until that independent passing clearance certificate is officially in our hands. Look, high-risk asbestos abatement is an exact science. It is governed by extremely strict regulations, heavy machinery, meticulous processes, and objective third-party testing. There is literally zero room for error when it comes to the air your family breathes. We really hope this explainer has shown you exactly what goes on behind those plastic barriers and why every single step we take is just absolutely critical. So when the time comes to finally address the vermiculite in your attic, who will you trust to secure your family's safety and peace of mind? At Prairie Asbestos, we firmly believe our uncompromising, highly structured site-specific control plan makes us the absolute most rigorous and trustworthy choice for homeowners right here in Regina. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn with us today.